The champagne glass shattered on the marble floor. "You're nothing but a servant in this house," my mother-in-law screamed, her face twisted with rage. My husband stood frozen. Then the doorbell rang. When that door opened, 7 words changed everything. "Hello, Patricia. We need to talk. What you're about to witness is a story of betrayal, hidden truths, and revenge so sweet it'll give you chills. If you're ready for a roller coaster of emotions, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications because you do not want to miss a single second of this. Let's begin. My name is Elizabeth, and 6 years ago, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I decided to disappear. Not physically, but from the world I was born into. You see, I wasn't always the woman people saw as poor or simple. I was born into wealth most people only dream about. My family built Hartford Industries from the ground up, and when my parents died in a plane crash when I was 19, I inherited everything. $500 million. 7 companies, a legacy that felt more like a prison than a blessing. By the time I turned 23, I'd been engaged 3 times. 3 different men who looked at me with love in their eyes, but I could always see it, that flicker of calculation when they talked about our future. They didn't love me. They loved what I represented, my bank account, my connections, my last name. The 3rd engagement ended when I overheard my fiancé on the phone with his friend, laughing about how he'd hit the jackpot and would never have to work again. That night, I cried until I had no tears left. Then I made a choice. I would find out if real love actually existed. I stripped away everything that defined me in the eyes of the world. I moved to a small apartment across the city, started volunteering at a community center, and lived on a modest budget I set for myself. No designer clothes, no luxury cars, no mention of my real family. I told everyone my parents were gone and I had no siblings. My brother Christopher thought I was crazy, but he understood. He promised to watch over me from a distance, to keep me safe while I searched for something real. That's when I met Kevin. I was organizing books at the community center library, wearing old jeans and a simple white shirt, my hair tied back in a messy ponytail. He walked in looking for information about volunteering, and when our eyes met, something shifted in my chest. He had the kindest smile I'd ever seen. We started talking, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as an heiress or a business mogul, but as just Elizabeth. A woman who loved old books and terrible jokes and long walks in the rain. Our first date was at a small coffee shop where we shared 1 slice of chocolate cake because he was worried about his budget. He apologized for not taking me somewhere fancier, and I almost cried because it was the most genuine moment I'd ever experienced. Over the next few months, I fell completely, desperately in love with him. He never asked about money, never pushed to meet my family. He loved me for my laugh, for the way I saw the world, for the person I was when nothing else mattered. When he proposed in that same coffee shop a year later, with a simple silver ring he'd saved for months to buy, I said yes without hesitation. I thought I'd found it. Real, true, unconditional love. But I should have paid more attention to the warning signs at our wedding. Kevin's mother, Patricia, wore white to my wedding. She stood at the back of the small ceremony with her arms crossed, her face a mask of disapproval. When Kevin introduced us for the first time weeks before the wedding, her eyes had traveled over my modest dress, my simple jewelry, and her lip had curled slightly. "So you're the one?" she'd said, making those 3 words sound like an insult. Kevin had laughed nervously and changed the subject. I'd pushed down the uncomfortable feeling in my stomach and told myself it would get better. It didn't get better. It got worse. Patricia made it her mission to remind me at every family gathering that I wasn't good enough for her son. "Where did you get that dress, dear? A thrift store?" she'd ask in front of everyone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Kevin's sister Amanda would laugh, always ready to join in. "At least she's trying, Mother. We can't all have taste." During family dinners, Patricia would literally make me eat in the kitchen, claiming there wasn't enough room at the table. Kevin would mouth "sorry" at me, but never actually said the words out loud. Never stood up, never defended me. I kept telling myself he would change, that he'd find his courage. Every night, I'd lie in bed next to my husband and feel completely alone. "Kevin, please," I'd whisper in the dark after particularly brutal family dinners. "You have to say something. I can't keep doing this." He'd pull me close and promise he would, that next time would be different. But next time was always the same. His mother would attack, and he would go silent, leaving me to bleed. 5 years. 5 years of swallowing insults. 5 years of being treated like I was less than human by the family I'd married into. 5 years of watching the man I loved choose his mother's approval over his wife's dignity. And still, I stayed. Because underneath all that pain, I remembered the man who'd shared chocolate cake with me. I kept hoping I'd see him again. Then came our 5th anniversary, and Patricia insisted on hosting a party. Every instinct I had screamed at me to say no. I'd learned to trust that feeling in my gut, that sense of danger. But Kevin begged me. "Please, Elizabeth, just this once, for me. Maybe if we celebrate with them, my mother will finally accept you." The hope in his voice broke my heart. So I agreed, even though I knew something terrible was coming. I wore my late grandmother's navy blue dress that night. It was the one thing from my old life I'd kept, a simple but elegant piece that reminded me where I came from. I'd planned to tell Kevin the truth that night, after the party. 5 years felt long enough to prove his love was real. I was ready to bring him into my real world, to share everything with him. I had no idea I was walking into an execution. The party was at Patricia's mansion, and the moment I walked in, I felt it. That electric charge of malice in the air. All of Kevin's family and friends were there, faces I'd seen dozens of times, people who'd witnessed my humiliation over and over and said nothing. Not one person from my side had been invited, because as far as they knew, I had no one. Patricia made a toast that made my skin crawl. "To Elizabeth," she said, raising her glass with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "She tries so hard to fit in. Bless her heart." The room tittered with cruel laughter. Then Amanda stood up with her phone in hand, projecting photos onto the wall. "I did some research on our dear Elizabeth," she announced. Old photos of me flashed on the screen. Me in modest clothes at the community center, me at the grocery store, me looking completely ordinary. "She came from nowhere," Amanda said triumphantly. "No family, no money, no class, and yet somehow she managed to trap our Kevin." The room erupted in agreement. People who'd smiled at me for years now felt free to show their real faces. I looked at Kevin, silently begging him to stop this. To finally stand up for me. His face was red, his jaw clenched, but his mouth stayed shut. He couldn't even meet my eyes. And that's when I realized this wasn't an anniversary party. This was a planned attack. They'd all known. They'd coordinated this to destroy me, and Kevin had led me here like a lamb to slaughter. I tried to leave the room, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Patricia grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "Where do you think you're going? We're not finished with you yet." I tried to pull away gently. "Please let me go." Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You want to leave? Fine. But make yourself useful first. Serve the guests. That's all you're good for anyway." The room went silent, everyone watching to see what I'd do. I looked around at all those faces, at the people who'd never seen me as human, and something inside me just broke. I picked up a serving tray with shaking hands, thinking if I just did this one thing, I could leave with some dignity intact. I'd go home, pack my bags, and disappear from all their lives forever. But Patricia wasn't done. She never knew when to stop. "Stop!" she shrieked as I walked past her. "Look at her, playing servant. That's all she is. Get out. You're just a maid. You were always just a maid in this family." Her voice echoed off the walls, filled with so much venom that several guests actually gasped. The tray fell from my hands and shattered on the marble floor, champagne and glass exploding everywhere. The sound seemed to freeze time itself. I stood there, tears finally streaming down my face, my whole body shaking. 5 years of abuse, of silence, of hoping for change. It all crashed down on me at once. Patricia stood there with her arms crossed, victorious. Amanda smirked. Kevin looked at the floor. And I knew it was over. All of it. The marriage, the hope, the love I'd thought was real. I turned toward the door, barely able to see through my tears. I whispered to myself, I should have known. I should have always known. Every step toward that door felt like walking through water, like my body was too heavy to move. Behind me, I could hear Patricia already starting to tell everyone how she'd finally gotten rid of me, how her son was free now to find someone appropriate. That's when the doorbell rang. The sound was loud, insistent, demanding. It cut through Patricia's monologue like a knife. The butler rushed to open the door, and I stopped walking, something in my chest tightening with recognition. My brother Christopher stood in the doorway. He was wearing a platinum gray suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his presence commanding immediate attention. Behind him stood 3 security personnel in dark suits and a lawyer carrying a leather briefcase. Through the open door, I could see 2 luxury vehicles parked in the driveway, the kind that cost $500,000 each. The entire room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Patricia recovered first, her face flushing with anger. "Who the hell are you? This is a private party. Get out!" She started marching toward him like she was going to physically remove him herself. Christopher didn't even blink. His voice was cold, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. "I'm Christopher, Elizabeth's brother." He let those words hang in the air for a moment. "And you must be Patricia. We need to talk." Gasps erupted around the room. I saw heads turning, people whispering frantically to each other. Patricia actually laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Her brother? Nice try. She has no family. She already told us that lie." She looked at me with triumphant hatred. "What is this, Elizabeth? Did you hire some actor to—" Christopher pulled out his phone with one smooth motion and held up a photo for everyone to see. It was me, but not the me they knew. In the photo, I was wearing a stunning evening gown, standing in a ballroom surrounded by politicians and business leaders. My hair was styled perfectly, diamonds at my throat, talking with the mayor like we were old friends. Because we were. Kevin made a choking sound. His face had gone completely white. He stared at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone, like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Christopher's lawyer stepped forward and began spreading documents across Patricia's expensive dining table. Each one landed with a soft thump that sounded like a judge's gavel. "Elizabeth Margaret Hartford," the lawyer announced in a clear, professional voice. "Heiress to Hartford Industries, current net worth $500 million, board member of 7 major corporations, primary benefactor to over 50 charitable organizations worldwide." He looked up at Patricia with a slight smile. "Shall I continue?" The color drained from Patricia's face so fast I thought she might faint. Amanda made a sound like a wounded animal. Around the room, people were pulling out their phones, frantically searching my real name, their faces shifting from confusion to shock to horror as they found article after article, photo after photo of the real me. Christopher walked further into the room, his footsteps echoing. He commanded attention without even trying. "Let me tell you all a story," he said, his voice carrying to every corner. 6 years ago, my sister's heart was broken for the 3rd time by a man who wanted her money more than he wanted her. She came to me crying, asking if real love even existed, and she made a decision. He looked at me, his eyes filled with both pride and sadness. She decided to find out. She gave up her name, her wealth, her entire identity to see if someone could love her for just her. He turned to Kevin, and I'd never seen my brother look at someone with such contempt. "You. She chose you. Out of everyone in this city, she saw something in you that made her think you were different, that you were genuine." Christopher's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "And for 5 years, I've watched from afar as you let your family destroy her piece by piece. Every insult, Every humiliation, every moment you stood there and said nothing while they tore her apart. Kevin tried to speak, his voice cracking. I didn't know she was your wife. Christopher's voice exploded through the room like thunder. You didn't need to know her bank account balance to defend your wife? You didn't need to know she was rich to tell your mother to stop treating her like garbage? He took a breath, controlling himself. But you want to know the worst part? Elizabeth stayed anyway. She kept hoping you'd find your spine. She kept believing in you. The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Mr. Hartford has been monitoring the situation for Mrs. Hartford's safety, he explained. With her consent, tracking devices were placed in gifts sent to her over the years. We have video and audio recordings of numerous incidents. He pressed play. Patricia's voice filled the room, crystal clear. You're an embarrassment to this family, Elizabeth. I don't know what my son sees in you. Another clip. Why don't you eat in the kitchen, dear? The adults are talking. Another. God, that dress is hideous. Did you make it yourself? On and on, years of cruelty played back for everyone to hear. Amanda's mocking laughter, Kevin's silence, the humiliation documented in excruciating detail. Patricia tried to speak, her voice shaking. This is illegal. You can't record people without— Actually, the lawyer interrupted smoothly, Mrs. Hartford consented to all monitoring for her own protection. Perfectly legal. And these recordings? They're also perfectly admissible in court should Mrs. Hartford choose to pursue legal action for emotional distress and harassment. I felt something shift inside me. All those years of bending, of breaking, of making myself smaller to fit into their world, it was over. I reached up and slowly unzipped my grandmother's dress, letting it fall to my waist. Underneath, I wore a cream-colored designer dress that hugged my body perfectly. I'd planned to change before the party ended, to reveal myself on my own terms. Now seemed like the perfect time. I stood taller, pulling my shoulders back, and when I spoke, my voice didn't shake anymore. You want to know why I stayed, Patricia? Why I endured 5 years of your cruelty? I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. I stayed because I loved your son. Because I believed that love could overcome anything. I stayed because I hoped that one day Kevin would remember the man he was when we met, the man who didn't care about money or status or what his mother thought. I turned to Kevin, who was now openly crying. But you failed me, not once, not twice. Hundreds of times you chose her approval over my dignity. Kevin fell to his knees, reaching for me. Elizabeth, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize. You didn't know I was rich? I cut him off, my voice sharp. That's your defense? You didn't know I had money, so you thought it was okay to let them treat me like dirt? I shook my head. You didn't need to know anything except that I was your wife. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. I was never enough for you to be brave. I turned to face Patricia, and for the first time in 5 years, she actually took a step back from me. You called me a maid, I said softly. You said I was nothing. So let me tell you about nothing, Patricia. Christopher handed me another folder. I opened it slowly, savoring the moment. This house? The one you're so proud of? I own it. I bought it 3 years ago through a shell company when you were about to lose it to creditors. You've been living in my house. Patricia made a strangled sound, grabbing the back of a chair for support. Your membership at the country club where you love to gossip about me? I continued. The club stays open because of my family's donations. That charity foundation you run and take all the credit for? I'm the anonymous benefactor who's been funding it for the last 4 years. I smiled, and it wasn't kind. Your entire social life, Patricia, everything you use to feel superior to others, it exists because I allowed it to exist. Amanda was crying now, ugly sobs that made her makeup run. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. I didn't mean— Yes, you did, I said flatly. You meant every word, every post you made mocking me online, every cruel joke. You enjoyed it. I looked at her until she had to look away. But here's what's going to happen now. All of you are going to face consequences. Christopher stepped forward, pulling out more documents. "Mrs. Hartford has prepared terms," he announced. "Patricia, you will issue a public apology at your country club in front of everyone you've gossiped to about Elizabeth. You will also complete 200 hours of community service at a homeless shelter where you'll learn what real hardship looks like." Patricia's face went from white to purple. "I will not—" "You will," I said quietly. "Or I will take this house, revoke the funding from your foundation, and make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly who you really are. Your choice." She closed her mouth, trembling with rage but trapped. "Amanda," I continued, "you'll delete every cruel post you've ever made about me. You'll issue a public statement, and you'll work at my charitable foundation for 1 year, unpaid, learning what it means to actually help people instead of tearing them down." Amanda nodded frantically, too scared to speak. Then I turned to Kevin, my heart breaking all over again because despite everything, I could still see the man I'd fallen in love with buried somewhere inside the coward he'd become. "You have one chance," I told him. "Therapy. Real, intensive therapy. You need to figure out why you couldn't stand up for the person you claimed to love, why your mother's opinion mattered more than your wife's pain." Tears streamed down my face now, but my voice stayed steady. "If you can do that, if you can prove to me that you're capable of change, then maybe, we can try to rebuild something from the ruins of this marriage. But Kevin, if you fail, if you break even one promise, I'm done. And the prenup your mother insisted I sign? My lawyers buried a clause in it. If you or your family mistreated me, you get 0 in a divorce. Nothing." Kevin nodded, still on his knees, broken and sobbing. "I'll do it. Anything. Everything. Please, Elizabeth, please." Christopher made one final announcement that sent a ripple of shock through the remaining guests. "Elizabeth Hartford will be joining the Hartford Industries Board of Directors publicly next week. Her identity will be revealed to the media. Everyone in your social circles will know exactly who she is." He looked directly at Patricia. "How does it feel, knowing that you've been tormenting one of the most powerful women in this city? Knowing that she could have destroyed you at any moment but chose mercy instead?" Patricia collapsed into a chair, her perfect composure shattered completely. The other guests were already backing toward the door, trying to distance themselves from the disaster, probably frantically deleting their own cruel comments and texts about me. I looked around at all of them one last time, these people who'd made me feel worthless for so long. "I want you all to understand something," I said. "I didn't hide who I was because I was ashamed. I hid who I was to find truth. And I found it. The truth is that most people are exactly as shallow as I feared, but the truth is also that I don't need anyone's approval to know my worth." I smiled, and this time it was real. "I know exactly who I am. The question is, do any of you?" Patricia stood in a serving line at a homeless shelter, ladling soup into bowls with shaking hands that were more used to holding champagne glasses. Her designer clothes had been replaced with a volunteer t-shirt. People who used to bow to her now ordered her around. I watched from across the room, making my monthly check-in. She looked up, saw me, and something in her eyes had changed. It wasn't kindness, not yet. But the cruelty was gone, replaced by something that might eventually become understanding. Amanda worked at my foundation's office, processing aid applications. I'd seen her crying at her desk more than once, reading stories of real hardship, real struggle. She was beginning to understand what suffering actually looked like. It would take time, but I saw the possibility of redemption in her. And Kevin. Kevin was trying. He'd moved into his own apartment to give me space. He went to therapy 3 times a week and sent me updates on his progress, never asking for anything in return. He'd stood up to his mother for the first time in his life, telling her that she'd almost cost him everything that mattered. We met for coffee sometimes, in that same little shop where we'd first fallen in love, and slowly, very slowly, I was seeing glimpses of the man I'd married. I couldn't promise we'd make it. I couldn't promise I'd ever trust him completely again, but I was willing to see if change was possible, because that's what this was all about, wasn't it? Not revenge, not destruction, but the possibility that people could become better than they were, As for me, I reclaimed my identity publicly. The media had a field day with the story, Secret Heiress Lives as Ordinary Woman for Love. Some people called me crazy, others called me brave. I didn't care either way. I'd learned something invaluable. I didn't need to hide who I was, but I also didn't need wealth to define me. I was Elizabeth, just Elizabeth, and that was more than enough. I split my time now between running my companies and expanding my charitable work. I bought my own apartment, kept my own accounts, and made it clear that I would never again be dependent on anyone's approval. I loved Kevin. Some part of me would probably always love him, but I loved myself more, and that made all the difference. Sometimes the people we underestimate are the ones with the most power. What do you think? Did I do the right thing by hiding my wealth? Or should I have been honest from the start? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story gave you goosebumps, smash that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe because we've got more incredible stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, never judge a book by its cover. You are not what others say you are. You are what you decide to be. See you in the next one.